Hey, students at Hope, love you guys. Today, I'm stoked to be taking you into one part of my current project, Through Their Eyes. I want to share with you insights and wisdom that I glean from other leaders and that I want to share with young leaders, community changers, and world changers like yourselves. My hope is that we grow together as the people God created us to be. As we have our perspectives changed, we learn new things, and we are inspired to love God and love others. So I'm going to start with a couple verses here, and then we will hear from our special guest, Coach of the Year, Avon High School football coach Mike Elder. Paul tells the Thessalonians this, a young church in 1 Thessalonians, just like ourselves. We always thank God for all of you, making mention of you constantly in our prayers. We recall in the presence of our God and Father your work produced by faith, your labor motivated by love, and your endurance inspired by hope in our Lord Jesus Christ. For we know, brothers and sisters loved by God, that He has chosen you, because our gospel did not come to you in word only, but also in power, in the Holy Spirit, and with full assurance. You know how we lived among you for your benefit, and you yourselves became imitators of us and of the Lord, when in spite of severe persecution, you welcomed the message with joy from the Holy Spirit. As a result, you became an example to all the believers in Macedonia and Achaia. For the word of the Lord rang out from you, not only in Macedonia and Achaia, but in every place that your faith in God has gone out. We'll talk about leadership principles, the ways that have helped Coach grow into the man God has created him to be and continues to, and his passion to see students and football players grow in faith and love to be a group of servant leaders like we just read about, on mission to bless their community, just as we are inspired to by the love of Jesus and the hope we have in him. Now here he is, Coach Mike Elder. Welcome in. We've got Coach Mike Elder here today. Coach, thank you so much for joining us. Honored to have you here. Thankful for the impact you make on our community and the city of Avon. I'd like to hear from you first, just a little intro about you, Coach of the Year, your family, your background. Give us the scoop.
Well, first off, thank you for the opportunity, Chad. When you offered me this chance to sit down and talk with you, I was certainly honored. And I've heard a lot of wonderful things about you as well. So a little bit about myself. I have three kids, Brock, Bailey, and Blake. Brock is a junior at Avon High School. Bailey is a sophomore at Avon High School. And Blake, my youngest son, is a seventh grader at Avon Middle School. They're drastically different, all in their own right, but three amazing kids, and very proud of them. My mother, who's 79 years old, and unfortunately has some early stages of dementia, she lives with me. And so her and I certainly go through some challenging journeys every day, but she inspires me in a lot of ways. So I'm blessed to have that. I'm the HR director for Avon Local Schools. That's the job that actually pays the bills. But I feel like I'm really blessed because we have 500 employees in Avon, and we've employed some really awesome people who have dedicated their life to influencing, young people. And it's inspiring every day to watch them do their work and be here in a role to support them. And then obviously, you guys know I'm the head football coach, which is what I do for fun. That's my passion in terms of, like, some people golf, some people fish and hunt, and I coach football because I just love the game and what it's done for me and what it can do for young people. So that's a little bit about my background. I went to Warren John F. Kennedy High School. I went to a parochial school for 12 years growing up, and then I went off to Mount Union College, where I majored in business, ironically. I'm now in education. I made a shift my senior year. But it's been a really cool journey for me, and I've met a lot of people who have impacted my life. And like I told you earlier before we started airing, I'm certainly a work in progress. And I think I'm a better coach today than I was 10 years ago. And I certainly hope that 10 years from now, I'll look back at this moment and say, boy, I'm better then than I am now.
Certainly a great goal setter. your reputation shouts that you clearly love your players, clearly love your kids. You got quite the tribe there, it sounds like. Were they all bees, by the way?
The killer bees, the three
Killer
B's. That's right.
bees.
Yeah.
I love it. I love it. But yeah, your reputation clearly shouts that you love your players. You're surrounding yourself with everybody that will love your players as much as you. And it seems to me that you don't just coach for an athletic program. You coach direction and purpose, and you're coaching the lives of young men, and not just young men, but the lives of any young person that really comes into your life. And I've worked with a lot of teenage guys, especially spent a lot of time earning my spot at the table of their life, trying to speak into their life. And I know it's next to impossible at times to speak into their life and actually see them follow direction. How do you earn the right in a player's life to speak to them so directly and actually see them follow and succeed?
Well, I think that's probably the part that I told you that I'm better now than I was 10 years ago and that I want to continue to grow in.
Mm.
When I first got into coaching, I'll be honest with you, I was somebody who, the players played the game and I was coaching them the sport of football. And I was so insecure in myself and what I wanted to accomplish on the field that it was just a matter of getting them lined up right and executing the offense and the defense and winning and losing football games. And the game is structured such that you inherently are going to teach some life lessons along the way in that process, but I was never intentional about it. And what I've learned now is that if you truly want to connect with kids, you have to invest in them on and off the field. I now am in the point where every one of my players that I have some one-on-one time, and there's so many kids in the program, it's hard for me to be that for everybody. But I do have coaches, just like you have your student leaders and the leaders in your organization. You need to count on them to develop more in-depth relationships with kids. But the first step is to listen. Teenagers want to be listened to. Too often, adults talk at them, and they'll absorb some of that, but they really want to be heard. And if you can start your conversations with kids involving questions about them and let them open up about their families and you let them talk and they become comfortable with you, now you can get beyond the surface level stuff and you can really start understanding what makes a kid tick, which then allows you to be supportive and talk about the appropriate things and the things they probably need more in their life. So again, for me, I do coach a position. So my tight ends in football, I feel like I have the best relationship with those kids because they spend the most time. But I am the head coach of an entire football team, and I do have some surface level relationships with these kids because it's just not possible to have that type of relationship with all of them. But what I'm proud to say is I've created a structure within our organization where I have coaches who are able to dig a little deeper.
Wow. Yeah. One of the codes we teach here, especially with our leaders, is, treat kids how you wanted to be treated as a kid.
Yeah.
As a kid, you do think that you are at every time, if you're 8 years old, you think you're 15 years old. If you're 15 years old, you think you're 22 years old. To kind of treat them that way, give them that responsibility and maturity that they're looking for, that they think they're in, but also speak truth and love into their life as well, where they're at. So that's awesome to hear. We're on some sort of good line there.
Yeah.
But we're learning.
What you said is exactly right, though. And I'm flawed. I certainly make mistakes in this, but what I find myself doing is, I'm 49 years old and I think like a 49-year-old man.
Yeah.
And you do have to take yourself out of that and think about who was I when I was 17 or 16, especially with my own kids. I make mistakes with them because you love them so much and you want to guide them and lead them, but you really do have to give them some leeway to make decisions and talk through things. And be a better active listener. That's one of my goals right now, is to be a better listener than I am just talking at people, because communication's key, and the overlooked part of communication is listening.
Wow. Yeah, my personal brand of coaching a student's life is I want to change their perspective. I want to teach them something new, and I want to inspire action in their life, to love God, to love others, to be a world changer, a community changer. It seems like a brand I see with you is full effort, hard work, good attitude, What's the hard work? How do you get into that good attitude to grow into the man that God's created you to be in the roles that you have?
When it comes down to it, I was really blessed to have mentors in my life who inspired me
Mm,
in a lot of ways, and hard work is something I grew up with. I grew up with that with regards to my dad. Every day watching him go to work and raise three sons and support my mother and do those things. So that was something that I got to see as a child, and so that was a little easier for me. But in the end, what I've learned is that service is what it's all about. Like when you talk about hard work, you can work hard and not have an impact. You can work hard on the wrong things. And
mm,
so working hard is great, but what are you working hard on? In my life right now, I'm working hard to become a better servant leader than I was 10 years ago.
mm,
And service is where it's at. I mean, when you can serve others and you can make sure that you're thinking about them and what they need in their lives, that's when you're cooking with fire. And I think any successful organization, that's what you do. You have a bunch of servant leaders. Our football team just named four captains
mm,
yesterday. And so the process for that is the players vote on who they think the captain should be. So they were voted in as captains, but it doesn't mean they're ready to lead. So I meet with every one of them and I lay out, and I think this is important with teenagers. I lay out, okay, what are our non-negotiables in our football program? And you spell that out to these young men to say, okay, are these going to be non-negotiables with you? Are you okay with this? Because you can't lead if you don't believe in that. And then we set goals. And then I tell them you got to be true to yourself and you can lead in whatever way is best for you. But in the end, it's all about servant leadership. And if you can't be a servant leader and you're not willing to inspire others and you're not willing to give to others and influence and impact others' lives, then you can call yourself a captain, but you're really not going to meet the requirements of that job. And then I spend today calling their moms and letting them know that your son has this amazing honor. Because I sometimes make phone calls that aren't always positive with parents. And so it's fun to talk to them and say, congratulations, you've raised a young man who now has an opportunity to lead. And we don't treat it as like, hey, you won this award. We treat it as you won this opportunity to do some really cool things with your power of influence, because that's what these kids all have. They were voted into that role, so they have a power of influence. Now it's my job to make sure they're influencing appropriately, similar to what your people are doing.
yeah, making sure they're using that influence responsibly. I love that. We had a student the other day. I asked, what is community to you? And he said, community is a group on mission. And I think we could even insert there a little better, a little clearer. It's a group of servant leaders on mission, um, being a part of something bigger than themselves. And that sounds like something as well that you preach, to be a part of something bigger than yourself, which to me, to our student ministry, that's togetherness. We've been teaching on that a lot lately. As a student ministry, we want to see our students participating in togetherness, united in being the hands and feet of God's goodness and grace. What are the core principles you live by to preach togetherness?
Well, that's awesome question, and your student ministry sounds a lot like our football program in a lot of ways of what you're trying to do.
Mm,
And I always togetherness. The word togetherness is certainly important. I emphasize the word team anytime I type it or it's put anywhere. It's in capital letters,
mm,
and I've explained to our kids that we've created a program K through 12 where all of us are equally important within the culture of that and our role as the head football coach. I didn't create a program where if Coach Elder left tomorrow, it would crumble around me. I created a program where if I left tomorrow, they pick up and the pieces and they run and they move on with it. And so
mm,
when you get everyone in your organization to understand that you're a piece of this puzzle, but we're all equally important, and you live by it and you mean it, like you truly mean it, that we're all replaceable, and this isn't about me, it's about us. Then you have something special. When we talk all the time about togetherness, we have core values that will excel academically, athletically, and socially. The
mm,
academically piece speaks for itself. The athletic piece will speak for itself. But I tell them it's not good enough that you're just taking care of yourself athletically and training to become a better player. You have to inspire others, and so that's an expectation. Showing up is not going to get you a pat on the back. Showing up and inspiring others will get you a pat on the back. And Leading by example, everybody says lead by example. That's great. But that's expected. You're going to lead by example. Sorry, that's not good enough in our program. You need to inspire others. So that's the things we talk about. And then the social aspect of it is making those decisions. And look, we all make mistakes. And I tell them I've made mistakes in my life and things I've done that I'm not proud of. It's a good thing that God's forgiving, right? And it's a good thing that we can be reflective. And it's a good thing that we can move forward with our lives and become better as a result of those mistakes. And so when you let kids understand that I don't expect you to be perfect, but I do expect you to be reflective. And I certainly expect you to change, to live into those things. You can create that togetherness. But in a football program, here's the truth. If you become servant leaders and you serve others and it's about your teammates and you can get rid of ego, and it's hard sometimes, it's really hard to do. It's a really special thing when you end up having a bunch of kids who are out on the field playing with relentless effort for each other. And why are they playing hard? Because they don't want to let each other down. Like that's love and that's care and that's important. And then to get them to also celebrate the student section and the marching band and their parents and always talk about how we're blessed to have this platform to play this game we love. But boy, make it about other people. Let your mom and dad share in this experience. And those are conversations that they hear all the time. And what's really fun and rewarding, and I think what your student ministry should hear is that if you continue to have the same conversations with kids and then you stop and you press pause and you step back, they start sharing that same message. And when I hear my players talk to the newspaper and I hear them talk to others, the word spreads. And so we are making an impact and a difference with kids. And that's how we teach togetherness.
I've got a couple more questions on all of that in a minute, but Coach, we're in a pandemic. I mean, how do you keep that togetherness mindset and stay close and have that group of servant leaders on their mission during all this?
But that was challenging, right? And I mean, it started with your organization and you leading your student ministry and making sure that you create a system to reach out and capture kids' attention during such a trying time. And so we as a staff, as a coaching staff, the first thing we did is we had a staff meeting and we talked about, okay, how are we going to still connect with our kids virtually and have conversations with them that lead us to where we need to be. Like we had strength and conditioning that needed to happen. It's a responsibility of ours in the game of football to make sure kids are safe. You lift weights, yes, it improves your performance, but the strength and conditioning is to protect them as well in the game that's a contact physical sport. So we also wanted to reach out and impact them academically and make sure they were staying up with their classes and their courses. And then socially, really during that time, like, are you okay? I mean, when you're in isolation, people struggle with that. So we divided and conquered. I gave everybody a set number of kids that they were responsible to reaching out to. And those coaches would set up conference calls like we're having right now, and I would be invited to it. So again, I'm one human being. I have a family, and like I said, my mom lives with me. I take care of her. I can only do so much. But my meetings were with my coaches, and then the coaches reached out to the kids, and then they invited me into those conversations. And a lot of times I just got to be an observer and watch and listen to kids talk and what did they need. And then my coaches would let me know, hey, this kid's struggling or this is what's going on. We ended up, doing virtual workouts before it was all said and done. Kids would set up cameras and they would train independently in their homes, but we as coaches were there to encourage them and make comments and so they didn't feel alone and isolated. But I'm proud to say we handled it as well as anybody could. None of us liked it in our new reality, but can't sit around and complain about it. You just have to take what you have and make the most of it. And I think we did a nice job of that.
That's powerful. I'm thankful for some aspects of the internet.
Yeah,
for that.
Some aspects of it, yeah.
Right. So what stories are there of players being there for each other in their community during a pandemic?
I'll be honest, I just was talking about this the other day with our new leaders, our new captains, and all of our kids are expected to lead, but the guys who were given the title. And I asked them, like, of our players that you've experienced, who is the best leader and why? And what I was trying to do is get them to communicate about what they felt from people that made them want to follow that person. And so when they're talking about it themselves, then they can utilize that to formulate their own leadership style that I'll guide them through. But we have a quarterback this year. His name's Nico Pappas, and he just won the Golden Helmet Award. And he also is one of the stars on our basketball team. And he comes from a tremendous family. And his name came up several times. And who Nico is as a human being is he's the guy who walks into the room and brings a positive energy and truly makes you feel like you're the most important person in the room. And he does this as a teenager. And some of the inspiring stories about him were him after practices, and we're undefeated at the time, and he's getting all the attention, and his name's in the paper, and he stops and presses pause to think about one of our coaches who has Parkinson's disease, who's on our staff, and hadn't been there because he was hospitalized, and he was in and out of hospital quite a bit. But Nico was always the first person to ask, hey, how's he doing? What can we do for him? Does he need something from the team? I watched him pull kids aside after practice because he could tell something was off with them, and walk off into the distance. And we as coaches are walking off the field, listening to him ask a kid, hey, how are you doing? What's going on? Do you need something? And kids loved him because he truly cares about other people. He loves other people, and he's kind and compassionate. We have a young man who's at the Air Force Academy now who was one of our captains last year. He's the superintendent of school's son, Mikey Lobb. And Mikey wasn't a star player for us. I mean, he played his senior year and had a role in our football program. But what he was able to do is inspire others through servant leadership. And, he was the kid that would always be the first one to sign up if we were going to go to the nursing home when we were allowed to do that last year. And we would go visit these folks. Or if we had a Santa's workshop where we were going to bring young kids in and our players were going to help them shop for Christmas presents. Those are the kids who are always the first ones to volunteer for those things because they can't wait to give back to others. And what they didn't know is they're writing their own story. And the list goes on and on and on over the years of what some of our leaders have done. And the truth is, not all of them were great leaders. We've had some captains who kind of missed the mark. But I take responsibility for that because I needed to do a better job of leading them. So I don't know if that answered your question, but there's a lot I'm proud of in our football program. There's a lot I'm not proud of and that we're trying to fix and get better. And I tell our players all the time, there's a responsibility now because when you step left to center and you make a mistake, you're immediately going to be connected to who we are as a group. And it's all of our responsibility to make sure that we continue to have a reputation in our program of being servant leaders.
Oh, that's a stellar answer to the question. That gets me hopeful, excited to see kids like that leading this generation coming up. I think that's awesome. Speaking of Nico's award, your online presence is an inspiring place, and it's rare. I'm thankful for that. You're tweeting about the awards like Nico's. Your guys are winning, and you're elevating them. I saw a post about Baker Mayfield wearing the cleats against the Titans, inspired by the artwork of Avon students in the Unified program. Just elevating all the young people, even outside the football program you can, even the little ones. I've seen shout outs for kids as young as second grade, and I just think that's awesome. How have you seen your players follow in that model, start to care for the little ones coming up behind them, maybe even the kids that are on the fringes that don't get the spotlight a football player does, a quarterback does,
Yeah, this has been a challenging year for that because of obviously all of the safety protocols we have in place in the schools, and I get frustrated because I feel like I'm making an excuse of what we were able to accomplish this year. But in the past, what I'm really excited about every year, and this is where Russ Mead, one of our culture coaches in our program, helps me out a great deal. But we do with our seniors at the high school, they have release periods, and we ask these kids to give up some of their release time and go to the elementary schools and show up on the playgrounds. And they show up on the playgrounds. During the playoffs, we do traveling pep rallies where band members and cheerleaders will go to the elementary schools. And when they walk into these schools, kindergarten through 4th, 5th grade, they're rock stars. And it's powerful because you have these young kids who look up to them. And that's inspiring for the young kids, but it's also powerful because our kids now see themselves as role models. And they see themselves as somebody, hey, young eyes are on me, and they're watching what I'm doing every day. And then we talk about that and how you have a responsibility to continue to walk the walk and make sure these kids, are looking up to the right things. And so it's been really neat. We do a Reading Buddies program with the local library where, the kids sign up and they come in, and our players have their jerseys on, and they sit down and they get to meet kids one-on-one, and the kids read to them if they're able to, and if they're too young, we read to them. That's been pretty cool. But we try our best to get our kids down into the elementary schools. Community service is obviously big in our program. I mentioned about the nursing homes. We've gone and played chair volleyball before with residents. We've gone and just kind of watched movies with residents. And then we're the first people that gets called by anybody in our schools where they need someone to help clean up a yard for someone in the community member who maybe is elderly and can't do so. And those are the things I'm most proud of in our program. And if you follow me on Twitter, I try to capture those. And honestly, I'm looking like this year I'm going to get out of my comfort level, but I think that we're going to try to expand to maybe Instagram or some other things. I don't know. I'm nervous because I want to reach more kids. You know, Twitter's for old people like me, and I want more people to see the inspiring things these kids are doing, so that our society can look at young kids and feel good about that. Because you hear all the stories about what our teenagers do that isn't good, but it's so powerful what they are doing and how they're impacting this world. And I choose to believe that we're in good hands because we have some great kids that are going to lead us the right way throughout the next decade.
Oh yeah, and I'll volunteer to help you out with your Instagram, no doubt.
Are you on there? You got that going on? You have?
I got that going on. I'm not in Snapchat, but I do the Instagram.
I'm gonna stay away from Snapchat.
Yeah, stay away from Snapchat. No need for that.
Anytime you create a message and then you have to make it disappear, I think that could be all. I don't know. I'm sure it's used for good too, but I don't like it.
Amen. Well, that sounds phenomenal. That sounds like a lot of fun that you guys get to have. I can't wait to get back to some of that. You also say that you surround yourself with other great teachers and coaches and other leaders. What do you look for in somebody that you're going to link arms with and love your players and love your community with?
Yeah. Well, I always tell our coaches that if you want to coach for Avon, number one, you better be selfless, because it's true. I mean, this program is bigger than all of us. And I'm the head coach, but I'm telling you, if I left tomorrow, they're good. We're good. I'm humbled to still be part of it. I just want to every year earn my right to continue my role within this program that we've built. It's quite incredible. But I tell them, you just got to love kids. Like we always say, we don't coach football, we coach kids. As an HR director, when we're hiring people for Avon local schools, and some people think it sounds cheesy, but I'm not kidding. Like I'm looking for the teacher who says, I teach kids, not math. There's two different types of people in this world. There's those who go into education because they love the content. Like I love my content. All right. And that's great. You need to love your content, but you better love kids equally. Because if you don't, you're not going to impact them. And so I want to surround myself with people who love the game of football, but they also love kids. And as a matter of fact, more importantly, they love kids. Yeah. I've had some coaches in my program that are probably better human beings, and they just love people more than they were a great coach. And they inspire, and they're the best coaches I have, because they will trump the guy who knows X's and O's all day but doesn't connect with kids on a personal level. And we get young coaches in our program where that's my job, right? That's the stuff behind the scenes that sometimes people don't see, is to get them to understand the power of relationships and how that's going to impact their ability to teach and coach. And the same holds true with our mentor teachers in our school district who work with our young teachers, is getting them to understand that they need to love kids first and then teach them the content that you're trying to get.
I love that. It brings me back to something I learned a while ago. A mentor told me 90% of ministry is showing up, being in their life, knowing their name, loving them, seeing them. That's number one. And then building the program, building the curriculum, whatever you're teaching, that's secondary. And it's helpful. And you obviously want to teach them good stuff to live by, but it's really going to come down to, are you in their life? Are you loving them? Are you seeing them? Are you knowing them? Do you care? Buying that seat at the table of their life again. So, I love students because I was loved first by God, but I was loved first by, usually men that loved me, guys that came alongside me, mentors who coached me. I've got to imagine you love students because somebody first loved you. Who were they? Who were your mentors, or just a mentor? If you just got the one that you want to consider talking about here.
No, I appreciate that because that's a topic that I love to talk about. When I was in high school, I had a science teacher. His name was Tim Johnson. He was my offensive line coach, and when I was young and struggling to find my own identity, and so many kids are just searching to belong to something. You know, I'm responsible for the football program, but kids need to just belong to something. Like I value our people in this district who just pour into kids in school, and then those especially who want to take an interest in kids outside of school. No matter what, it could be a student, it could be student council, it could be a senior class advisor, it could be a club, an art club that we have, because every kid wants to belong to something. Tim Johnson, I was struggling, I had nothing to belong to, and he was a guy who came into my life and breathed confidence into me when I didn't know which direction I was going or who I really was, and was spinning my wheels as an influential teen. He kind of guided me in a direction that made me believe in myself and develop self-confidence. So he was the really first inspiring role model I had. And then that inspired me on to college, where I went to the University of Mount Union, and I got to play football for a guy named Larry Karras. He's in the College Football Hall of Fame. He's the winningest coach in college football history. But what I learned from Larry Karras was a great deal of goal setting and having that determination to achieve those goals. And he also was a tough love guy. You know, he was old school, and he wasn't the guy that would certainly pass along too many compliments, but he could change a mood and change behavior with a look because you respected him so much. And he's somebody I still call to this day, and I reach out to him, and he's the first one to share with you about the value of relationships.
Mm.
And I think as he moved through his career, just like I'm moving through my career, you know, I'd love to tell you that every kid that's gone through our football program is a satisfied customer. But I feel like I failed some kids, and not intentionally, not because I had malicious intent, but because sometimes the disappointment that the decisions I make bring them, and and I wasn't able to connect on a certain level, happen and occur. But I think he's also made me feel good about, hey, you're not going to be perfect. You are going to fail, and all you can do is your best. And then you continue to reflect and refine and get better at what you're doing. But Tim Johnson and Larry Karras would have been those two role models for me.
Awesome. You know, my hope is that my students hear stories like this from a guy like you and go, okay, I do need to receive mentorship. I do need to receive coaching and being led and be coachable. I think this is a generation that a major factor is you're exposed to anything you want in the entire world. You can choose anybody that you want to influence you, even if you don't personally know them. And we've got to come back to it's going to be a lifelong lesson that you need somebody that actually knows you and is in your life, that's got more life experience than you, that's doing life on life, one-on-one with you. So that's my hope. You know, the guy that comes to mind is named Matt Simon. He's a youth pastor that I apprenticed under some years ago. And he taught me statements that have followed me to this day, like ultimate over the immediate. Whatever goal you're setting, that ultimate goal, that ultimate mission, you've got to look at that more than any immediate temptation or opinion of others, what people want you to be. One, when I was more of an adult, when I was probably in my early 20s, he said, look, you've got to prepare your life for a year at a time. We get so caught up in 5-year plan, 10-year plan, and those, don't just throw those out, but we've got to plan a year at a time. Become the man that God's creating you to be this year, and then the next year, and then the next year. And so that's really helped me. And I got on the phone 2 days ago with him, and I got to share with him that my wife and I are pregnant for the first time.
Congratulations. That's
Thank you.
That's awesome.
So he started going immediately on the phone, leaned in, I could tell, and started coaching me on how to be a dad right away.
That's really cool. Yeah, everybody needs that person, and I'm never gonna not need that. And Eric Schrombach, our athletic director, is a man who's really changed my life and perspective as a coach too. When you start thinking about things holistically, this guy is an athletic director and he can impact so many people. And a lot of people might look at me and say, "Oh, look how successful he is." I can promise you that my success has come from people like him too, who have really challenged me, and in a way where he's a great listener, and then he'll just plant seeds and he'll water them, and he's made me become more intentional as a person and as a coach. And so he's another guy that I lean on, and I know a lot of people in our district do. He's a remarkable person, and he's humble as well in that he'll tell you about his flaws and things that he wishes he could get a do-over on. And I think that's the biggest thing for people to understand is that you don't have to be perfect in this world. You don't. But thank goodness there's this thing called forgiveness, and
Yeah.
we want to be forgiven when we make mistakes. And there's the people that something happens and they're just they're not sorry. They're sorry that they got caught, right? And then there's truly sorry. And if you can truly own your behaviors and try to move forward, then life is good, and you now have to give that same grace to other people when they do you wrong. And that's something I've really had to learn in my life, is to give grace, and then obviously to be better at saying, hey, I'm sorry, I screwed that one up. Those are both powerful things: forgiveness, and then to say you're sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. Words to live by. Absolutely. And you mentioned that you learned goal setting and mission really from your mentor at Mount Union. And it seems like you have some personal mission statements. I teach this all the time to kids. Hey, make yourself a personal mission statement. You don't have to be a CEO that leads a company to make a mission statement. You personally have mission statements, and you look to those to become the person God's creating you to be. And it seems like you've got a couple. It's a great day to be an eagle and make it a great day. All caps. So can you explain those a little bit to us? The mission statements, what do they mean to you? How do they motivate you?
Yeah, the whole make it a great day is something that I just started doing, and I certainly capitalize make because I think what I'm trying to accomplish there with myself, first and foremost, and people can interpret it any way they want, but for me, I get to choose my day. I do. There's going to be things thrown at me, and there's going to be things that come your way that try to rip at you a little bit, maybe at times, and they're going to make you a little less positive about the outlook on things. And I always say it's okay to have a bad day. It's not okay to have a bad week. It's your choice. And if you're allowing other outside factors to impact and influence you and your decisions, then shame on you. That's nobody's fault but yourself. And look, there's some really tough things that we get thrown at us in this world, and some are tougher than others. And just pressing pause and putting things into perspective, and then understanding that your mindset and your positive approach to the day is going to make or break it, to me is powerful. So I want everyone to understand that we have choices in how we proceed with our day and what we're going to do with that. And if I think I'm having a bad day, I try to press pause and I look straight to the servant leadership. How can I reach out to somebody else and make their day better? Because apparently, if you can do that, you'll start feeling better about yourself. So that's that one. And then it's a great day to be an Eagle. I don't know that anybody's probably more proud to be from Avon and to teach and coach in Avon than I am. The reason why is because we have tremendous families and tremendous kids in this district. I said we have 500 employees, and we certainly have problems within our district, but I call them Avon problems. We are beyond blessed in this district to have the resources and the relationships to impact and influence kids through our school system. And so I just think it's a great day every day to be an Avon Eagle because we're blessed with so many things in this community. And that's just my way of saying how much I appreciate the piece of it that I get to be part of.
I love that. When my students hear this, I'm going to be handing them journals or saying, open up your phone, start writing down a personal mission statement or a couple like that. Motivate yourself, have that good attitude, have that mindset every day. So I'll close out here with you. This has been such a blessing to me, such a joy. I used to have a Cleveland Browns podcast and used to have guests on like Ernest Biner and Jennifer Matthews, the great Clay Matthews' daughter. She runs the prison fellowship in LA. So awesome to have you on the ticket now, Coach Mike Elder, teaching me great things.
Just put me in there. That's pretty.
I did. Putting you in some great company because I've learned a lot over this. Our student ministry will. To close out, what would you say to our students to inspire them to focus on growing in the things that really matter? Maybe you do want to just say, hey, it is full effort, great attitude, hard work, but really how to be a reflection of the goodness of God and their community, their families, their teams.
Yeah. Well, the first thing I would say to everybody is to never underestimate your ability to influence others. I always tell everyone to be a star in your role. In our program, it's be a star in your role. in this school district, be a star in your role, and understand that we all matter. We all have the ability to impact other people. And for me, I want to be a star in my role, and so I have to continuously sit down and talk about, okay, what direction do I want to go? And you have to be critical of yourself and say, what have I done well, and what have I failed at, and what have I learned from those failures? So for you guys, that's the biggest thing I would do. Just be a star in your role, and to be a star just means you're continually putting your best foot forward. You're going to continue to try to inspire and impact others, but it takes planning. It really does. It takes reflection. It takes prayer, and you've got to certainly sit down and think about, like, what do I want to accomplish in my role with the influence that I've been given in my current role. What do I want to accomplish with that? And then revisit it and see how you've done, and then be critical of yourself and say, what did I fail at and what could I do better? I think that's what every organization does. I think that's what every good employee does. I think that's what any good leader does, is they're constantly looking for ways to improve and grow. And never underestimate your ability in your current role. Too often our society looks at the next job like, well, this is where I want to be, and so I'm gonna continue to focus on how I'm gonna get there. And until you're a star where you're at, you'll never make those moves and career changes. And so I think that's one thing I would say.
That's perfect. What a great ending. Again, so honored to have you on, honored to sit under your leadership, your wisdom today. Make it a great day, Coach.
You too. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this opportunity and all that you're doing.